Okay, so in the previous lesson, you learned all about layers. In this lesson, I want to share with you how to align different layers. Doesn't matter if you're a photographer or graphic designer, at some point, you may need to align different layers with each other depending on the project. If you're a photographer and you're doing a photo collage, you may want to align those photos in a certain way where they align evenly across the top of each other. You may also want to apply an even amount of spacing between each one of those images. And if you're a graphic designer, you may want to align text layers with an image or another graphic along the left edge in order to align them as part of the composition of that file. So you're going to learn how to align different layers. It doesn't matter if it's a text layer, shape layer, a pixel layer, whatever it is, you can align different layers with each other, and you're going to learn how to do that in this lesson. So you can either grab this file to follow along or to use it after you finish this lesson to practice what you've learned. So this particular file has 12 layers. We have our text layers, we have some shape layers, and then we have a couple other layers that are locked and we're not going to use as part of this lesson. So let's say you want to take this text layer and you want to apply it directly in the center of the shape below it. Well, you can grab that layer and manually place it in the center, but it's probably going to drive you nuts trying to figure out if you have this exactly in the center. So there's an easier way to do that. Then maybe you want to take all 5 of these shape layers and you want to align them directly across the top of each other. And again, you can grab each one of these and manually move them. And then you can zoom in to make sure that you've aligned them properly. Again, there's an easier way to do that. All right, so let's say we've centered our text layers directly in the center of each shape, and we've also aligned them exactly across the top. Now, what you want to do is apply the same amount of spacing between each layer. Again, you can grab each layer and try and figure out if they have exactly the same amount of space in between them. Trying to do that is going to drive you crazy. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use an alignment tool in Photoshop to make this a lot easier for us. So the first thing you want to do is you want to grab your Move tool, which can be accessed via this icon right here or with your keyboard shortcut, which is the letter V. The next thing you want to do is select the layers that you want to align. So we can either grab a layer from here and it will automatically select it if you have Auto Select selected. If not, then it's only going to select the layer that is selected from the Layers panel. So if I try and select number 3 or number 4, it's not going to automatically select that layer unless I have Auto Select selected. Then I can grab individual layers without having to come over to the panel over here. Or you can come over to your Layers panel and hold down your Control key to select another layer or additional layers. If you want to select all the layers, you can select the top layer, then hold down your Shift key and click on the last layer, and that's going to select all the different layers for you. So let's go ahead and align our numbers directly in the center of each shape. Go ahead and grab the first layer, then hold down your Control key and click on the green shape. Once you do that and you have your Move tool selected, you will then activate the alignment tools, which are located right here. So each one of these icons will align your layers based on the icon that you click on, and there's other icons here as well, and we're going to use those in just a minute. So the first option will align all the layers to the top edges, align them vertical centers, align bottom edges, align left, align horizontal centers, and align right edges. So to center this number directly in the center of the green shape layer, we're going to click on Align Vertical Centers, and then align horizontal centers. And now that layer is perfectly centered within that shape. Let's go ahead and grab our other layers and align those numbers as well. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and group these layers so we can align each one of the shape layers with the text layers along the top and then evenly apply spacing between them. So grab your first two layers, then with your keyboard shortcut, group them, which is Command or Control and the letter G. I'm going to double click on the text here to rename it. I'm just going to give it a 1. And then let's go ahead and group the rest of the layers as well. Okay, let's go ahead and align them to the top edge. The first thing we have to do is select all the layers. So in order to select them all, we have to select the first layer, hold down our Shift key, and click on the last. Now all of them are selected. So what we're going to do is select Align to Top Edges, and what it's going to do is align all the layers to the topmost layer. And just like that, everything is perfectly aligned. If we undo that with Command or Control and the letter Z and select Align to Bottom Edges, it's going to align to the layer closest to the bottom, which is the number 5 layer, and perfectly align them down here. Okay, now we're going to apply an even amount of spacing between each layer. Once you have multiple layers selected, you get new options, which are these options right here, which will distribute the space between the different layers. We can distribute that space to the top edges, vertical centers, bottom edges, left, horizontal centers, and right edges. So what we're going to do for this particular set of layers is to distribute the space between them with this option right here, which is horizontal centers. Once you click on it, it will then automatically apply the same amount of spacing between each one of the layers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out with my zoom tool, which is the letter Z. I'm going to select my number 5 layer. With my move tool, I'm going to click and drag to the right. Now here's another quick tip. As you're moving, you can move it anywhere you want, but if you want to make sure that that layer is perfectly aligned in the same position and doesn't move up or down, hold down your Shift key and then you can't move it up or down. So with my Shift key, I can move it to the right. I'm going to go ahead and click on the number 1 layer, hold down my Shift key and move it to the left, and now we can evenly distribute the spacing between them again based on the new positions of our end layers. Select all the layers and click on the horizontal distribute via centers, and we get a new set of spacing which is much wider than it was before. So keep in mind your outer layers are the anchors for the distribution, and then the layers in between them will be distributed evenly based on the location of these 2 layers. Okay, let me share with you a couple other tips and also a real-world example of how you might want to use your alignment tools for a particular project. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect all of these by just clicking anywhere on my document. And another thing I want to show you is how to select multiple layers without using your layers panel, and that's simply by clicking and dragging your mouse over the layers that you want to select. And you can see in the layers panel, I have the first 3 layers selected, and I love using this option to select multiple layers directly on my document without having to come over here to make those selections. Now I do have another file here. This is a brochure, and let's say you're creating a brochure for your photography business or your graphic design business, and you want to align your new text layers with each other. You can simply click and drag out to select those layers and then use your alignment tools to align the text. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is if your background layer is not locked, then when you go to select your layers, you're going to end up selecting your background layer as well, and then you're going to end up aligning your text with that background layer. So make sure you have any layers that you don't want to align to locked so that it's not selected when you select them directly on the document. Over here, we can also align our text evenly in the center by using our marquee tool. So here I have a little text box. I can apply my guidelines to the edges of that box. And then if I select my marquee tool with the letter M, I can click and drag out the width of that box. And then I can select my layer that I want to center within it. And with my move tool selected, I get the options to align, and then it will align within the center of that marquee. So just for an example, if I move my marquee tool over here and then realign it, it will center based on where that new marquee tool is. So you can use your marquee tool as well as a means for aligning different layers. So let's go ahead and add our marquee tool again. And then if you want to select the layers directly from the document, because maybe you have too many layers to actually locate it from over here, hold down your control key and then click on that layer. You'll get a pop-up menu with different layer names, and then it will highlight the one that you clicked on. Once you click on that layer there, it will select it in the layers panel, and then you can use your alignment tools. But right now, it's grayed out, and that's because this layer is locked. And when you try to unlock it, you can't, and that's because it's in a grouped layer, which is locked. Once you unlock that grouped layer, then you have access to that layer, and then you can align it. So let's go ahead and grab our other layers. I'm going to click on this. And sometimes when you try and select a layer, it's not always going to allow you to select it because it's not really picking up that layer within the marquee. So you may have to come over to the layers panel and select it to align it. So there you go. Those are some different ways to align your different layers and a real world example of how and when you may want to align your layers. So go ahead and grab both of these files and practice what you've learned, and then we'll move on to the next lesson, which is all about learning how to stack, copy, and delete your layers.